Hey, what's up, guys? I'm Rex, and this is my review of Invasion of the Astro-Monster. I made this channel as a side channel just where I can talk about Godzilla movies because it's my favorite franchise, and I wanted to review all of the Godzilla movies in order of release. So that's what I'm doing, and yeah, today is Invasion of Astro-Monster. This came out after Ghidorah, the three-headed monster, and I have to tell you, it's been about a week since I saw this movie. I've just been so busy. I live in New York. We had the NBA Finals. I was watching the UFC Freedom 250 pay-per-view, and yeah, it's just been kind of crazy here the past week. So if I don't have every single detail from the movie, I apologize. I do have some things pulled up that I wanted to look at first. So this movie actually released December 19th, 1965 in Japan, but it didn't release in America until July 29th, 1970, apparently. And one thing I didn't know about this film is that this film apparently, I say apparently because like I haven't verified it, but from what I've looked up online, this film had a pretty tight production schedule. At least we do know that the American actor, because this film actually had, like, one of the stars of this movie is an American actor. His name is Nick Adams. His real name. His name in the show is different. And it's Glenn, Mr. Glenn in the show. So anyway, we'll get to the movie in a minute, but I just kind of want to talk a little bit about the background. So this one had about a full year before it released after the previous Godzilla film. So it's a year later. Ghidorah, the three-headed monster, came out. I liked that movie. The review for that's on the channel. This movie comes out, but we know that when they filmed the American actors' scenes, they only filmed from mid-October to mid-November 1965. Now, I could not verify if that's all the filming that was done was like in that 4 or 5 week period, or if it was just his scenes and they had a much longer period to do everything else. I'm not really sure, but apparently it had somewhat of a tight production schedule in late 1965 leading into its December release, and apparently it had a slightly lower budget. It was also a co-production between Japanese and American creators involving Toho and United Productions of America. Let me see what else. Godzilla's suit. So he did have a new suit in this. Apparently, it's often referred to as the Daisenso Goji suit. It featured changes from the previous suits, such as removed kneecaps, less pointed dorsal fins, enlarged eyes with movable pupils for more expressiveness, and a slightly retained but de-emphasized breastbone. Rodan and King Ghidorah suits were recycled or modified from the previous film. As far as its budget, 132 million yen is the number that I'm seeing. Some sources cite around 150 million yen. And again, for comparison, this was a little bit lower than some of the previous entries, and it led to some cost-cutting measures when it comes to like the set design and when it comes to like stock footage and some of the how do I say, less elaborate miniatures in the sets and stuff like that. So, and apparently Mothra was planned to make appearances in this film, and that was also cut. And it says here that director Ishiro Honda noted the challenges of this vicious cycle of tighter budgets and fan complaints about reused footage. You know, this kind of, as a gamer, and that's what I mainly do. I have a YouTube channel called Rex Sterling Live where I stream playthroughs of video games. Right now I'm doing Final Fantasy 13. It's so much fun. But this kind of makes me think from the gaming perspective of something like Call of Duty or even FIFA or Madden, right? You have some games that are pumped out year after year after year, and they can only be of a certain quality because, either their budgets are not grand enough, or, and this is, I think, probably the more important one, is that they're not really given enough time to really make something completely new. They're not given enough time to create something as memorable as they want to create because, the developers are on such a tight schedule. So apparently that was something that the director complained about. I was actually surprised to see that apparently reviews on this were mixed from critics. Now, I don't know. I actually want to look at IMDb and see if it'll show me. If it'll show me on IMDb, it's 6.2 out of 10 on IMDb, and apparently it was seen as a little bit more favorable in the Godzilla community, generally very popular among Godzilla and Showa era fans. It's often called a classic for its energetic story, international cooperation themes, memorable Planet X sequences, Godzilla's victory dance, which, yes, his little dance is in this movie, which it was awesome. I did not know it was coming, so that was pause. But I didn't know it was coming, so that was really cool to see. And the team up dynamics here. So anyway, that's just some of the background on this movie. I'm going to go through, like, I have notes here on my phone. I do this for all the movies. I wish that I could show you guys, like, footage or, you know, even give this to an editor so we could, like, make the video more interesting for you. But I just really don't have the time to do all of that. I'm sorry. So this is, you know, a video I think most people, if they do watch it, they'll just listen to it. So just so you know, I'm going to be sitting here with my phone. I'm going to scroll through notes I took as I watched the film, and, you know, hopefully I'll be able to remember most of the actual film. So this is continuing the theme of aliens. So this kind of started in Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster, where I remember we kind of go on this arc with a lot of aliens being involved in Godzilla plots. I don't know if it continues every movie. We'll get to the next movie at the end of, like, this review. But this one is, again, another, like, alien-focused plot. Let's see. One thing that stood out to me at the very beginning is the music. So the opening featured music that I know from this video game right here, Super Godzilla. And of course I know it from these movies as well, but it's got that dun, 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 dun. I can't really imitate it better, but you probably know what song it is that I'm talking about. So it has a very popular piece of Godzilla music play during the intro, and as soon as I heard it, I was like, oh shit, it's this one, because I think this is the first movie that it's played in. I could be wrong, but I think this is the first time that I heard that song, and that was just a big deal to me because, you know, a lot of the music around Godzilla films is just iconic to me. So hearing that during the opening was great. It actually starts out with a spaceship, and you have an American, Mr. Glenn, and a Japanese character, Mr. Fuji. At the time, I did not know that these were their last names, so I called them Glenn and Fuji, not realizing until later they have different first names, but it doesn't matter. Anyway, they are taking a spaceship to a moon that has been discovered outside of Jupiter, and they've named it Planet X. It's a moon on outside of Jupiter that is for some reason emitting a radio signal. So that has made it very it's like drummed up a lot of excitement in the science community, and they've sent these astronauts out there to explore it and see what could be causing it. The other main character, or one of the other main characters, is the Japanese character, Mr. Fuji. His sister, Haruno, whose name I might be saying wrong because I can't remember how it was pronounced in the film right now, but his sister Haruno, okay, so he has a sister who also works for, like, this space program that they're a part of. It's not like it's called NASA, it's called something else, but it's like a part of, like, some united, like, world space program or something like that. There's a lot of like it said, like I was reading before I started the review, there's a big emphasis on, like, countries and the world working together in these films, and I really liked it in this film as well. But Fuji has a sister, Haruno. She has a boyfriend that he doesn't approve of. and her boyfriend is an inventor, and you see him, he's trying to come up with something called the Lady Guard, and it's basically like, a portable alarm system where, if a woman is in danger or needs help, she can press a button and it emits this like really loud, annoying frequency alarm sound, and he's tinkering on that. There's a brief interaction between the brother and the sister at the beginning of the film. Basically, you see Glenn and Fuji in the spaceship together. They call down to like base or control center, and they talk to their boss. And Fuji has a message for his sister, who also works for that same organization, and he tells her, don't rush into anything. So he really does not approve of her boyfriend. And the boyfriend's an inventor. I've already gone over what he's making right now, but he's basically considered a failed inventor because he hasn't sold his invention yet. Anyway, this changes like really, really quickly early in the film, when he gets a call at home from a company, and the company says they want to buy his invention. The name of the company is the World Education Corporation, and they send someone named Miss Namikawa, who, by the way, the actress for Miss Namikawa is stunning, and she's been in other Godzilla films. I did think she looked familiar. She's been in some of the other Godzilla films as like side characters. I think this is the first film where she's had like a main primary role, or if I'm wrong about that, this is up to now her most primary role. But she plays Mrs. Namikawa, or Miss Namikawa, and she arranges a dinner with the inventor, and he also invites Fuji's sister, his girlfriend, to the dinner as well to discuss the sale of his invention. But yeah, she's stunning, and she's in a ton of Godzilla movies. I think her final movie is Godzilla Final Wars, which I can't wait to review that, because that's going to be all over the place. But yeah, she's iconic. Like, she's one of my favorite characters, and seeing her was so awesome. So anyway, one thing I will say is, and I made this note during the movie while I was watching it, is that the pace early in this film is very, very quick. It's very, very quick. But I liked it. It even has like a really cool transition where it shows the brothers in their spaceship. You see this like little toy spaceship flying, and there's like black tarp and what looks like stars in the background. It looks okay. The miniatures, like the miniature spaceship and stuff like that, looks pretty bad. You can see the wires and everything. It's not great, but they do this transition where the ship flies by and you're looking through the vastness of space, and then it like transitions over to a restaurant where they're having the meeting where I think his name is Tetsuo. I think that's the boyfriend. He's going to sell his invention, and the transition is really nice because there's a background in the restaurant that's all black with some white lights, and so the transition is so smooth it looks like space. So it goes from space to that background to the restaurant. I really liked that. So I made a note that there were some really, really good cuts in the movie. So they have their dinner, and let's see. I'm reading it right now to just keep up with everything. So they have the dinner. He sells his invention. He signs the paperwork. Miss Namikawa lets him know that he's not going to receive his money until the product like goes to shelves and stuff like that. She also strikes up a conversation with his girlfriend, who is Mr. Fuji's sister, asking a lot about their mission to Planet X, and she seems really interested in that mission. So I kind of picked up on that. And there's also another cut after the dinner where the inventor tells his girlfriend, your brother said if I sell my invention, he'll stand on his head if I'm able to sell my invention, so he better start practicing. And then it immediately cuts back to the astronauts, and they're flying upside down, so he looks like he's standing on his head. And then they realize they need to like rotate their ship, so they rotate their ship back. It was just like a really cool kind of creative cut that like I noticed. I was like, oh, that's nice, because one of the things that I didn't like in some of the earlier films was a lot of the cuts were so abrupt, and this felt a lot better. Even though it's like a faster pace, it doesn't feel as hard to follow or as awkward, so I like that. I also noted that, the space and rocket shots seemed maybe a little overly ambitious, because, wires were visible and it didn't really look that good as far as like the set and as far as like the miniatures. They end up landing on Planet X and it shows Glenn and Fuji getting out of their like their rocket ship. So they get out of their rocket and they take like this little elevator down, and it's literally just a little toy of an astronaut, going down very very slowly, this elevator outside of a toy rocket. And it does not look believable for like even a second, to be honest with you. It doesn't look believable for even a second. And for some reason, they really focus on it. It's like a long, drawn-out sequence where he's, taking the elevator down and getting onto the planet, and then here comes Fuji going down as well to meet Glenn, and it's just drawn out, and it's bad. So that was one thing that I was like, ugh, I don't know if I would have not focused on that. I don't even know if I would have included it, but if I did, I would have tried to make it as quick as I can, because it just did not look good, but it is what it is. They're on the planet. So they get on the planet, and of course, what's one of the first things that an astronaut's going to do? They're going to go to plant their flag. So Fuji's going to plant the flag. Him and Glenn separate while Fuji's doing that. He comes back and Glenn is gone. Glenn's been like kidnapped or abducted, maybe. He disappeared. And then these aliens from Planet X who live underground start to speak to to Fuji, I guess through like a loudspeaker. That's what it sounds like. Maybe it's in his head. I'm not really sure. But they invite him down. An elevator basically comes up out of the ground. The top of the elevator is disguised to look like part of the ground. It comes up. They invite him in. They say everything's okay. Just come on in. The ship, they've taken the ship down. So, Fuji goes down there to meet the aliens. And then they have a conversation with the aliens. And basically, during that conversation, Monster Zero, who ends up being Ghidorah, the aliens call him Monster Zero. It turns out that the aliens use numbers to name things instead of using words. That's how they like to do it. So Ghidorah is Monster Zero. He attacks during the meeting. They kind of shut the meeting down. Ghidorah attacks. They're able to drive him off, or he leaves or whatever. And then the aliens reveal that basically, they want help defeating Ghidorah. Ghidorah is like terrorizing their moon or their planet. He's a menace, and they want the help of Godzilla and Rodan, Monster 1 and Monster 2. So I think Monster 1 is Godzilla and Monster 2 is Rodan. Monster 0 being King Ghidorah. So they tell the astronauts they want Godzilla and Rodan's help, and in exchange, they will give human beings the cure for cancer. So, sorry. I don't have to tell you this, but everybody agrees, because obviously humans want the cure for cancer. So they agree to let the aliens, abduct Godzilla, or, take Godzilla and Rodan to fight King Ghidorah in exchange for the cure to cancer. Let's see. One thing that I thought was interesting at the end of this scene, where there's all this discussion and, the astronauts leave. Of course, the astronauts don't say yes right away. They leave. They go back to Earth. But, of course, they eventually agree, obviously. But after the astronauts leave, up to this point, maybe it's a little... maybe as a viewer, you're a little bit unsure whether or not you can trust the aliens. They have the astronauts leave, and then they focus on like the alien leader. He's the basically the commander of the aliens on this planet, and he kind of starts to do like an evil laugh when the astronauts leave. So right then, like, okay, these guys are bad. I don't know if they should have foreshadowed it, honestly. I kind of feel like there would have been more tension in the film if they would not have done that. If they would have left like some gray area for the viewer to wonder, and maybe they did this because the Godzilla films were starting to aim more at children. Maybe they were thinking about younger audience. Maybe they already were aimed at children. I don't really know. I wasn't there, right? But Maybe it was because of a younger audience. They wanted to make it more obvious, but I wish that they would not have foreshadowed the aliens betraying the humans, because I feel like, that's something they could have played around with a little bit more throughout the film. And they still kind of do, but you already know what's going on, and I feel like that diffuses some of the tension personally. Let's see. So what's next? Okay, so we have a dinner scene where Fuji and Glenn meet up with Tetsuo and Fuji's sister. I can't remember her name. Naruma. Anyway, they all meet for dinner, all four of them. These are your four main characters except for Miss Namikawa. So Glenn has a date that he's going to, and the brother and the boyfriend are just kind of like bickering a little bit back and forth about like whether or not the boyfriend is good enough for the sister. So there's like some bickering back and forth. Glenn leaves, and it turns out that after the brother, he grills the inventor, and they cut away from that to Glenn on his date, and his fucking date is Miss Namikawa. Lucky bastard. So that really shocked me. I did not see that coming. I thought it was really, really cool. It's a bit of like a hyper coincidence, right? Maybe a little unbelievable, but I thought it was really cool. So he has a date with her, and I thought this was their first date, the way that it was presented, but the way that they talk, it seems pretty serious. So they're on a date. They go out into like a cabin on a mountain or something like that, like a log cabin, like on a little retreat. They're going on a date. It seems really nice. The brother still opposes the marriage. Okay. So after all of this happens, this is like the next day or something like that. The brother's at work, whatever. He's doing something. Glenn comes to get him, and Glenn says, "Hey, I need to talk to you. Come with me." And Glenn takes him back to that same area that he was on that date with Miss Namikawa. And he brought him there because he wants to have a conversation with Fuji about not trusting the aliens. He says that while he was, sleeping, he like had a dream that the commander was in the lodge, and he heard him talking. And he said that Miss Namikawa said, that he was basically like, mumbling in his sleep and looked really distressed, like he was having bad dreams. But basically Glenn just says he's got a bad feeling about the aliens, and he's had a bad dream that, he can't trust the aliens, that maybe they're even spying on them. And so they kind of like talk about that for a little bit. It doesn't really go anywhere. And then the aliens appear out of the water. So this area where the lodge is that they went on their date out in the mountains, well, it's around a big lake, a big body of water. The aliens spaceships come up out of the water, and the aliens go ahead and get Godzilla. They use like a tractor beam or something, whatever equivalent of it. They use a beam to pull Godzilla out of the lake. They go and they grab Rodan, and they take both of them, and they basically just take them, even though at this point in the film, like the people in charge, of like the United Nations equivalent or whatever, basically the world has not completely agreed yet to their offer to take Godzilla and Rodan, and get rid of this trouble for us, save their planet, and also give us the cure to cancer. We haven't completely agreed to it, but they show up and take the monsters anyway. So of course the humans are really, really upset, and the aliens have to explain themselves. And so the aliens do. They say, "Hey, look, listen, in however long it was going to take for you guys to figure out if you were going to agree to this or not, Godzilla or Rodan, or both of them, they could have woken up from their slumber and just started destroying your cities. And we need help right now. And we know you need the cure to cancer. And if they wake up before we take them, you're going to have all sorts of problems. So we came here already." And even though the humans are like not happy about this, you can't really argue with that. So, they kind of say, all right, fine. And then the aliens invite the humans to come onto their ship. They're going to take the aliens back to Planet X, and they're going to give the human beings. They're invited as like state guests, so they're inviting them to Planet X as like honored guests, and then they're going to give them the cure to cancer. Before this, Namikawa shows up and tries to warn Glenn that he can't trust the aliens, and that he can't go, and that she's like really worried about him and she's afraid. And he does like the cool guy. Everything's going to be fine, sweetheart. Don't you worry. Mwah, whatever. Like, he's just cool guy Glenn. He's too good. Just sends her a wink and says, it's going to be all right, sweetheart. Don't worry. And he goes. So anyway, that happens. Now, when Namikawa leaves from that meeting with Glenn, Tetsuo is there because Tetsuo still hasn't gotten paid. So this has kind of been lost in all of this. But remember, Tetsuo did not get paid for selling his invention. He said that he wasn't going to get paid until his invention went to market. Well, they bought his invention, but then they shelved it. They're not actually putting it on the market. And, we don't know why. And I actually think it's a really cool twist to why. But I'll get there when I get there. But they have not paid him. They have not put the toy on the market. They're just holding it. And so Tetsuo's obviously upset about this, especially because, like, if he could get this money, maybe then he could get the approval to marry Fuji's sister. So he follows Miss Namikawa, and it turns out, of course, that Miss Namikawa is working with the aliens, that she is one of the aliens, because, if you haven't seen the film, they all look humanoid. Although, I've got to say, if you haven't seen their outfits, Invasion of Astro-Monster Aliens Planet. Let me see if I can pull this up and show, because it's so ridiculous. The aliens' outfits are so ridiculous. Here they are. Hold on. Let me see. Okay, so let me see if I can. There we go. So you can see here. This is the aliens. This is what their outfit. This is what they look like, and it is so ridiculous. Like, I'm telling you, it looks so funny. They look so ridiculous in their outfits. I don't know if that. I don't know how people looked at there, and of course, the dance, bro. Of course, we're gonna get to that. I don't know how Godzilla fans or movie goers felt about their outfits back in like the late 60s or whatever. Like maybe when this movie came out, like these outfits were totally believable, but it was so ridiculous to look at throughout the movie. Anyway, I just wanted to say that. Point is, they look like human beings outside of that dumbass outfit. So Miss Namikawa is one of the aliens. She's working with the aliens, and the aliens ask her to stop being involved with Glenn. So she's only supposed to be like monitoring them. She's doing espionage for the aliens basically. But she's fallen in love with Glenn, who is basically like Mr. James Bond. Okay, so that's what's going on. They tell her, hey, your job is to get information. Stop acting like you're in love with this guy. Tetsuo shows up during the meeting. He's immediately captured and thrown in jail. There's like a little jail. They're all meeting in like one of these lodges in that same area where Namikawa and Glenn were on their date. So anyway, they throw him in a cell down below the building when they capture him. So from there, we cut back to the moon. Godzilla and Rodan are released. And now this is where a big difference between this movie and Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster. I remember saying that I liked Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster, but I could understand other people not liking it because you don't really get the final like big monster fight until the last 13 or 14 minutes of the film. I think Godzilla's in the film for a total of like 8 or 10 minutes or something like that. It was very light on action, but they only had like a couple of months to make that film. Now, I know that earlier we said that the American actor, his scenes were only filmed over a 4-week period. I doubt the entire movie was made in that 4 or 5 week period, but they had a full year to work on this film after the release of Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster. Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster was made, they only had a couple of months to make that film, and you could tell the action sequences and the monster sequences were really light. We're only really halfway into the movie now, and we're getting our monster fights. Our monster fights are starting halfway into the film. So when I pause the movie and I notice that we're only halfway in and they're releasing Godzilla and Rodan on the moon to fight King Ghidorah, I'm like, okay, like they're giving it to us now. They're going to give us these action, because that had to be a criticism of Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster. So anyway, we have really good action immediately. Godzilla, the first thing Godzilla does, I said in my last review that I don't think Godzilla ever used his, atomic breath on Ghidorah, which I thought was really interesting in the previous film. In this movie, first thing he does is fire his breath, which I believe his breath is, they're still doing blue, and I think they're still doing blue plates, but I can't remember, and I didn't make a note of it. I'm sorry. But if it would have been drastically different from the last film, I would have made a note of that. So I think we've still got the blue spray, kind of like we're getting closer and closer to his breath being like that explosive beam that maybe you're more used to, because it starts out in the earlier movies as basically like a spray, like an aerosol spray almost. So we're getting away from that. Blue, and I think blue plates. I think they still light up when he shoots in this movie. I can't really remember, but I think they do. He does a really cool jump attack. Like, he runs and just jumps Ghidorah, which I thought was awesome. Just a running, jumping tackle. It was so cool. And honestly, they beat Ghidorah's ass in this movie. And so, yeah, like that was, and then we get Godzilla's, we get the victory dance. We get this. We get this. In the first fight on Planet X, he does his little jumping dance. So I want to talk a little bit about the fight first. The fight was awesome. I thought the fight was really, really good. I was surprised how much they beat the shit out of King Ghidorah, because, one thing I said about the last movie, they made Ghidorah look really, really, really strong. Like, it took 3 monsters, Godzilla, Mothra, and Rodan, to overcome King Ghidorah. And it was extremely difficult. And, Ghidorah was still holding them off on that 3v1. He was still holding them off pretty good until, till he wasn't, till they finally overcame him. But they made him look really strong. Not so much here, dude. Like, Godzilla and Rodan just beat the shit off of King Ghidorah. It was kind of cool to see. I don't really know how I feel about it. And the reason why is because I think the scene was good. I think the combat was good. But I was kind of shocked that they did not make Ghidorah look stronger here. And I don't know if that was intentional, because, there is a plot line here, or a part of the story where the aliens are able to control the monsters with like radio waves or something like that, electromagnetic waves or something like that. So I don't know if this was a scripted fight. The aliens are controlling King Ghidorah, and it's scripted for him to lose. I don't really know. There's a part of me that wants to criticize, like, man, you shouldn't have made Ghidorah look so weak here. But there's another part of me that, one, I liked the fight. It was really cool to see. And also, it may have been scripted that way by the aliens and just wasn't clear to me. And then, of course, Ghidorah, he fucking bails. He runs off or flies off. He flies away. And then Godzilla does his jumping victory dance, which was really cool. It's... I don't know where they came up with this victory dance. I don't know why they threw it in there. Like, I don't know if they just wanted to humanize Godzilla more, give him more personality. I don't think it's a bad thing. It's funny to watch, right? It's funny to watch, but it got a laugh out of me. I did not watch it and feel cringe. I kind of had like an affection. I was affectionate for it. Of course, I'm a lifelong Godzilla fan, so I don't really know. I'm probably super biased. But I would love to know more about that dance and where it came up with. And you know what? I'm gonna look it up right now while we're talking, while we're having this moment, me and you. In Invasion of Astro-Monster, did the studio ever mention where the Godzilla victory dance came from? I just kind of want to look it up. I know that I should do this before I record, and I'm like super sorry. Yes, okay, so the Godzilla victory dance, often called the She dance, SHIE or SHE dance, in Invasion of the Astro-Monsters. It has a well-documented origin tied to contemporary Japanese pop culture. Really? So the origin of the dance, here, we can read this together. Like, I can treat this like one of my game streams for a minute. I'm sorry. I hate to go all like Asmongold on you guys, like I'm reacting and stuff, but let's read this together. The move was inspired by a popular pose from Fujio Akatsuka's manga Osomatsu-kun and its anime adaptation. I've never heard of that. A character named Iyami would jump into a silly pose while shouting she, which became a cultural phenomenon in mid-60s Japan. Godzilla mimics this exact celebratory jig after helping defeat King... What? Hold on. Let me look this up. I want to look this up and see if I can find it. I want to look this up. I'm sorry. Let me see. Can I find it? You know what? I can't, I don't think... Yeah, I can't find it. I can't find a clip of it. Is this it? I'm not really sure. No, I don't think that's it. Well, I tried. I thought that for sure there would be a clip there. But anyway, let's go back to the details here. So actor Yoshio, who played the Zillions control, so one of the Zillions, that's the Planet X aliens, controller, the commander basically, suggested it to special effects director. He liked the idea and supported added more comical anthropomorphic traits to the monsters to appeal to a growing kid audience. The Godzilla suit performer, effects cinematographer, and director opposed it. Wow, that's interesting. So the suit performer that played Godzilla, the effects cinematographer, and Ishiro Honda opposed it. Honda reportedly saw it as undermining the film's tone and was quite unhappy about it. Wow, then how did it make it into the film? Wow. That's so interesting. Hold on one second. If Honda opposed it, how did it make it into the... How did it make it into the film if Honda opposed it? That's weird. It says Honda didn't have final say on every creative decision, especially in the special effects sequences, which were largely under the special effects director's domain. Wow. So he enthusiastically supported it and already wanted to make Godzilla more like human, give him more human traits. And then Toho executives backed the lighter, kid-friendly direction for the franchise, shifting away from the darker tone of the original. Some accounts specifically note that it was pitched or approved at an executive level. Damn. Damn, hold up. Honda's son recalled how visibly angry his father was during production, though Honda stayed professional and didn't openly fight it on set. Wow, I didn't know that it was so controversial. I mean, that completely makes sense because, you still have Ishiro Honda, directing, and it makes sense to me that he would not be down with this direction that Toho wants to go in, or, this more like meme, like having Godzilla do like a dance from an anime or a manga that's popular. Like, I could see, like, if I were to think of like a popular thing that I love that's right now, that was this serious in nature, at least in its origins, and it started doing stuff like this, I could see it bothering me too. That's crazy. I had no idea that it was so controversial. That's wild. I'm excited. I just learned something really cool about the Godzilla franchise that I didn't already know. That's awesome. So, if that, all of that to say, that the dance is what it is now. I was a kid when I saw it. I did think it was cool when I was a little kid. Seeing it as an adult, I thought it was kind of goofy, but fun. I didn't feel like it ruined the tone necessarily, but it did seem out of character. And now that I have like the full context of it, that he was doing a dance from like a popular anime, popular manga, that was like, he was basically doing a viral TikTok dance, the equivalent in the movie. I can understand why Ishiro Honda was pissed off, bro. I can understand why. I'm not personally affected by it, but I can understand why he was so pissed off. That's crazy. So anyway, wow. So, anyway, all of that happens. Glenn and Fuji, during this, during or after this, Glenn and Fuji, our astronauts, they kind of sneak off around in the base, and they start kind of like looking around in the aliens' base, trying to find proof that the aliens are like lying or misrepresenting something. They end up running into Namikawa while they're, looking through the base and stuff like that. And they find Namikawa, and Glenn runs over to her and starts shaking her. And he's like, "What's going on? You're working with the aliens. Like, explain yourself." And she's in one of those aliens' outfits and everything. And then another Namikawa comes out, and then another, and then there's like 15 Namikawas. And it turns out that they're basically all clones. Excuse me. I don't have time to edit these videos, and so I expect that these videos will probably never be seen by anybody on YouTube, and that's fine. But I don't have time to edit this. I'm sorry. I've been sick for like 2 weeks, with like my allergies in my throat, my respiratory system, for whatever reason. Anyway, so all the Namikawas are clones that work for the aliens. The aliens find Glenn and Fuji in this moment, bring them back to like the little control center. They forgive them for snooping around. They give them the cure for cancer, which is like on a tape recorder that they have to play, and then they send them home. And there's some interesting moments here where Glenn and Fuji are leaving, in their rocket ship, which had, I think the aliens also cloned their rocket ship. So they're leaving in their rocket ship, and they see Godzilla and Rodan like kind of looking, and I think Glenn, I can't remember which one of them, maybe it's Glenn, but they have a conversation about how kind of sad Godzilla and Rodan look being left behind, and that, maybe it's kind of bad to leave them behind. And they say that they basically feel sympathy for Godzilla and Rodan in these moments, which I thought was kind of interesting. It was kind of an unexpected, unprovoked verbal exchange between them about Godzilla and Rodan that I think kind of helps to position, the monsters again as, good guys, as sympathetic, like protagonist, like good guy monsters or whatever. So I wanted to mention that. Haruno, so the sister, is looking for Tetsuo. She can't find her boyfriend. She ends up having a meeting with Namikawa, the real one back on Earth, has a meeting with her to discuss her boyfriend missing. And she mentions that the boyfriend, he was following you. He wanted to talk to you about his invention. He disappeared the other day following you to that place where she went to meet the aliens. I guess it's the aliens base on Earth. It's like a log cabin or something, a little building. So Namikawa was like, oh no. And then they cut, back to, they cut away from it. But it's kind of funny, because I feel like that conversation, definitely there should be a lot more to it, because, she just says, do you know where he's at? I can't find my boyfriend. He was following you. And then Namikawa goes, oh boy, oh no. And then it just cuts away. I feel like there should have been more to that, but it was kind of funny. We cut to the cancer cure tape, and finally back at the Earth base for the Space Force or whatever. The governments and everything, whoever, all the people in charge of like the space program and the governments, they meet. They play the tape for the cure to cancer, and it basically is just the aliens telling the people of Earth that, hey, you're our slaves now. This is a colony for us. This is now another colony for us, just like Planet X is. And you're under our control, and accepted. Basically, it's just telling them, hey, we own you now. We have these monsters. We have Godzilla, Rodan, King Ghidorah. Or we have Godzilla and Rodan. Maybe they never controlled King Ghidorah at all. I think King Ghidorah was just a rogue entity in all of this. I don't think they ever were able to control them. Maybe. Regardless, they have Godzilla, Rodan. We own you. You're our slaves now. This is our colony. Mass riots ensue. So they show like people rioting all over the planet. There's some awkward cuts. And then we have Glenn, who is randomly, like, I think there's been a bit of a time skip, because you see Glenn going through these like almost post-apocalyptic looking streets, and like he's going through like the rubble of some building. It just looks like there's been mass riots and there's been some kind of time skip, but I'm not sure how much of one. But Glenn randomly runs into Namikawa in her spacesuit, and he confronts her in the ruins of this building. And again, apparently it's after a time skip. This is the real Namikawa, apparently. I don't know how he randomly ran into her, but he did. She tells him that she wants him to come with her to Planet X, that she's basically arranged that he can come with her to Planet X. They'll get married on Planet X. Again, I felt like it was their first date. Like I really didn't get the feeling that Glenn and Namikawa had been dating each other very long, because like nobody even knew Namikawa. Nobody even knew that he had a girlfriend. So, that felt jarring to me, that they're talking about getting married and they're acting like such a serious couple, but I just got introduced to their relationship and it seemed new to everybody. So I'm not really sure what was up with that. Could have been a translation issue. I'm not sure. But she says, listen, I've made arrangements. You can come with me to Planet X and we can get married there and live on Planet X. Glenn, of course he refuses. Namikawa rushes to him. The other aliens show up. The Zillions, they show up. Namikawa runs to Glenn to hug him, and as she does, she slides a piece of paper or something into his pocket, like the pocket of his jacket. And then she's killed. The aliens kill her immediately, and then they throw Glenn in prison. Glenn seems upset in the movie that Namikawa is dead, but there's no real grieving. There's no real mourning for her dying, even though they were just talking about getting married. So it's like their relationship wasn't serious, but then it's like so serious that she wants to marry him and that they're planning to get married, and she's going to like bring him to Planet X to be her husband, and he loves her, but he just can't go. He can't support the aliens. To she gets murdered and he's like, damn it, why did you do that? And that's like his only reaction. So, you know, like it's just like emotional, like tonal whiplash there a bit. Which in previous movies there was a lot of that. There's less of it here, which I appreciate, but it's definitely here. There's also an underrunning theme of computer AI controlling every action that people do. I don't remember the specific scene that prompted me to talk about this, but basically in the movie, the aliens and everything that they do, it's guided by a computer. There's an algorithm, there's an AI algorithm that basically tells the aliens exactly what to do and how to achieve like basically optimal results, and basically be in some type of meta at all times to achieve optimal results on everything. So basically everything that these aliens do, everything the Zillions do, is dictated by this computer, this supercomputer that calculates like the best odds of success for like any given action, any given goal. And they kind of mention that throughout the movie. They kind of talk about that, which I think that's really relevant to a lot of things that are happening in the real world right now, especially when we talk about, you know, social media algorithms and how, you know, algorithms on social media websites, whether it's Facebook or Instagram or Twitter or anything, or even, you know, YouTube, it will show you more of what it thinks you like and show you less of anything that would cause friction or might challenge the way that you think or might challenge the content that you enjoy. So it basically pushes people into echo chambers or pushes you into like harder into one type of content. Like, you know, if you watch one cat video, you get 1 million in your feed. And that's not too bad, actually. You know, cats are cute. But, you know, if you look at some adult content on one of these websites, all of a sudden your entire feed is going to be that, and it can like porn brain you or, you know, brain rot or whatever, AI slop content. So anyway, I thought, wow, you know, like a lot of these themes that, you know, people were clearly thinking about, you know, back in the 60s, still relevant here in 2026. And I thought that was pretty awesome. So I made a note of that. Anyway, the aliens come and attack with their ships. They start attacking planet Earth. Then they reveal their plan to use the monsters to conquer Earth, which I guess maybe they probably mentioned that earlier, but now they're like, maybe they didn't mention it earlier. I'm not 100% sure because it's been a minute since I watched it, but they definitely announce it here. Like, we're gonna release Godzilla and Rodan, and we're gonna stop all this rioting, and you're gonna listen to us, and we're gonna shut you down. There will be no opposition to us, basically. They do control the monsters with electromagnetic waves, and the humans come up with a plan to find a way to disrupt those waves so that the monsters are no longer under their control. So they start trying to develop a way that they can interrupt those waves. Glenn and Tetsuo. So Glenn, you know, he's captured by the aliens after they kill Namikawa. They throw him in the same jail with Tetsuo, the inventor. So they're in the jail cell together, and they find Namikawa's note in Glenn's pocket. He reads it, and you know, she tells them in that note, I think she, you know, tells Glenn that she loves him, but she also tells him that the aliens are vulnerable to a very specific audio signal, a very specific frequency or audio signal. All of the aliens are extremely vulnerable to it, and it turns out that is the same signal the Lady Guard invention emits. And that is the reason why when, you know, Tetsuo started trying to, you know, sell that invention, and he was like, you know, trying to shop it around to buyers, when they got wind of that on Earth, they immediately sent someone as a representative of this company to buy his invention. And that's the reason why they never put it on the market. And I thought that was brilliant. I thought it was really cool. It makes a lot of sense. Of course, you could pick at it like, okay, why did the aliens infiltrate the education corporation or whatever, and how did they even find, you could dig into it if you wanted to. But for the sake of this movie, and a lot of it is somewhat shallow anyway, I thought it was great. I really liked that little twist, because the whole time I was wondering why they bought this invention and weren't putting it out. And it turns out it's because that alarm noise, they can't stand it. They're vulnerable to it. So they obviously use the Lady Guard invention because, Tetsuo has one on him, but he hasn't thought to try and use it. They use it, and then they end up escaping the prison. They get out of the prison, and they escape containment. They get away from the aliens. At this point, the aliens activate Godzilla, Ghidorah, and Rodan. Okay, so I guess they were controlling all three of them. I didn't remember that. Again, it's been a week, and I forgot, and I have goldfish brain. But the aliens were controlling all three of them. They activate them. They start destroying everything. I liked the destruction scenes. They were really awesome. There's also some really cool scenes here where Godzilla's walking through buildings, and you see his huge feet just crushing stuff. They really focused on that a lot, which stood out to me as somebody who's a big fan of Godzilla 1985 or The Return of Godzilla. This was, it stood out to me, those scenes where Godzilla is stepping on things and destroying things. They focused on that a lot. I thought the destruction scenes were actually pretty good, even if they did have a lower budget. Ghidorah's using his breath attacks. They're awesome, and he's just wrecking everything. I really like the destruction scenes in this part of the film. Let's see. Even when I made a note of this. Even when the army was fighting Godzilla, this is one of the first times I saw this. Godzilla gets directly shot in the face by like missiles and cannonballs from, tanks, or missiles from the tanks, like shooting and exploding right on his face. And I was like, in a lot of the Godzilla films that I've watched, I've always thought it was kind of convenient that either the missiles never hit Godzilla, or if they do shoot Godzilla with anything, it's usually just in the legs, the body. It's like they never really go for the eyes. They never go for the mouth until, The Return of Godzilla, 1984. I can't wait to get to you. But yeah, they shoot him directly in the face. So the action is really good. Set design seemed improved in some places, I noticed, not improved in others. Like for instance, in the tanks now, they actually have little people in the tanks, like, obviously little dolls, little miniatures, but they have people sticking out of the tanks now. It's 50-50 because it's obvious it's a doll, but it is extra detail. So, the audio frequency works. The aliens are disoriented. The plan to disrupt the electromagnetic waves also works. So, they blast out that audio frequency. Glenn and Tetsuo are able to meet up with, the brother, and they meet up with Fuji, and they're like, listen, you got to listen to us. You got to, blast this sound right now. They blast it on all the radios across Japan. It works. The aliens are totally disoriented. And then they also are able to pull off their plan to disrupt the electromagnetic waves that are controlling the monsters. And the monsters all of a sudden are free. And it's a really interesting thing because it like stuns them. It's not like they all of a sudden just like snap out of it. All of them just fall down and are like kind of like writhing on the ground, like basically having a seizure as they come out of this, control from the Zillions, the aliens. And then the aliens, all of their ships just explode. They self-destruct, basically. The aliens self-destruct all their ships. And they make a comment. I can't really remember it, but the commander makes a comment about, self-destructing, and we'll jump to another timeline, or we'll jump, to another dimension or something like that. They blow up all their ships. So now all that's left is Godzilla, Rodan, and Ghidorah. Godzilla wakes up first, and he chose violence immediately. Godzilla's the first one up, and he immediately just starts kicking giant boulders at Ghidorah, like just slapping Ghidorah with these giant rocks. And then he slaps Rodan with his tail to wake him up too. Like Godzilla's immediately like, yo, let's fucking fucking fight. Like, I don't know what's wrong with this dude. Like, he just wakes up, he's disoriented, he just had a seizure. He wakes up, he sees Rodan is down, he sees Ghidorah is down, and he's like, yo, let's fucking do this. And he slaps Rodan with his tail to wake him up and starts, like, kicking rocks at Ghidorah. Let's see. Ghidorah gets up. The fight starts. One thing that I thought was really cool during this fight scene is Godzilla uses like some monster dirty boxing. Like, he jumps in there, and this is kind of like a really cool thing that it seems like they learned from the previous film, because Ghidorah's got these 3 heads, and all 3 heads are able to shoot this breath, and he was murdering Godzilla in Ghidorah the 3-headed monster. Well, Godzilla's learned from that now, and so Godzilla has learned head movement and learned that he's like footwork, and so the whole time Godzilla's like, and he's just like jabbing and throwing hooks, and he's like right up on King Ghidorah, like he's right in Ghidorah's face. They're this far away from each other, and he's dodging the 3 heads and bouncing around and just throwing punches and dropping bombs, bro, and boxing. And I was just like, I thought that was really cool, because it showed that he learned, and it showed like, hey, I can shoot 1 breath, he can shoot 3. I don't think I want a ranged fight with him. So he's up like throwing hooks and shots to the body. I just thought that was really cool. Like, I was like, yeah, this is fire. This is really good. I'm enjoying this combat. Rodan is also getting some awesome like shots in, flying at supersonic speed and hitting Ghidorah like in the back of all 3 heads, knocking him down. Like, they're beating the shit out of King Ghidorah again. Godzilla ends up holding Rodan by the tail. So he holds his tail for Rodan. Oh, they did something, and I can't remember what it was. I hate myself for this. But during the fight sequence, Godzilla ends up holding... He either held Ghidorah's tail so that Ghidorah couldn't get away and was distracted so that Rodan could come in and fucking hit Ghidorah, or Godzilla held his own tail so that, I don't know, maybe Rodan could pick him up and throw him like a bowling ball into Ghidorah. It's like one or the other there. I'm not really sure. I didn't spell it out because I thought I was going to do my review like very shortly after watching the film. Well, I learned my lesson, and I won't do that again. But anyway, the fight was really, really, really good. And they do, yes. So they end up doing an attack where Rodan carries Godzilla and throws him into King Ghidorah. And I said, what the fuck? And yeah, so that's the final move of the fight, actually. Rodan picks up Godzilla, and they charge tackle into King Ghidorah, and they all fall in. Can you guess what's about to happen? It's the end of the fight. It's the end of the giant fight with the giant monsters. What do you think happens? If you said they all fall down into the ocean, you win. The same thing that happens all the time. But it was really cool. They tumble down the side of a cliff, side of the mountain, whatever. All 3 of them just rolling, and then they crash down into the water that they land in. They crash down into the ocean. Ghidorah emerges and runs away, so he flies away again. So, 2 straight movies, Ghidorah has been the enemy, and they have not killed Ghidorah. I really like that. And I think that that's a really smart thing that they did. I don't know if it was intentional, like they knew, like, okay, we're going to use this monster over and over. We don't want this monster to die. We need to keep this monster alive. Now, Ghidorah did not look anywhere near as strong in this film as Ghidorah looked in the previous film that got his name, right? I guess this one did. I mean, Invasion of Astro-Monster. I'm pretty sure Ghidorah is the Astro-Monster, so I guess both movies are named after him. And I think it was called Monster Zero in America, that's the version of the movie that I saw. I saw this movie in the Criterion Collection. That's where I'm watching a lot of these Godzilla films. So this was the Japanese cut with English subtitles. But, I'll watch the American version of something if I have to. I had to do that with, I think, Godzilla versus King Kong, or King Kong versus Godzilla. But anyway, what was I saying? I don't remember. I'm sorry. But yeah, they tumble down into the water. Ghidorah flies off. And then I don't think they show Godzilla and Rodan, but it shows Ghidorah flying away. Oh, I was talking about keeping him strong. I think it was smart that they did not kill Ghidorah in any of these films, but they did show how much Godzilla and Rodan, had learned from the previous fight, and they whooped his ass in this film. So, whenever Ghidorah comes back, which might be a film I haven't seen. I don't know if I've seen another Ghidorah film after this one. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in the next one. It probably won't be a Showa film. I could be wrong. But yeah, I mean, I think it made sense. It showed how much Godzilla and Rodan had learned, and considering how much they had learned and how much, they were prepared to fight him again. They worked together. They worked together even better than they did the first time, and Ghidorah was still the same monster. And Ghidorah was really kicking ass in the previous film, so it's not like there was a lot of pressure on Ghidorah to, outsmart the other two, even though he lost. So, I really liked it. I really liked the fight here. And then, Ghidorah leaves. The brother finally says that, he approves the marriage of Tetsuo and his sister and Haruno. And then that's it. They just cut to black. That's it. There's no real end scene. He's like, well, I guess I approve it. I guess you can take care of my sister, because his main objection had been, you're broke. You're broke. You're an inventor. You haven't sold an invention, so you're basically a failure, and you're broke. You can't take care of my sister. You can't provide for her. Well, after this, he says he was wrong, and he believes, and he gives his approval. There's no real. There's no mourning for Namikawa. There's no real ending scene. Tetsuo and Haruno don't really get like an ending scene together that's really strong. They just kind of just cut to black. Like, all right, like it's like they ran out of time and they're like, it just ends. I don't even think there was credits. I think it just ended. So anyway, it was abrupt, but I have to say overall, I thought this was an awesome movie, man. I really liked it. This might be outside of the OG. This might be my favorite I've watched so far. I thought that the human story with the aliens and their betrayal of the humans, Namikawa and Glenn's relationship, and then her ending up being an alien, the twist with the inventor and why his invention is important, and how the aliens were trying to, suppress it being used. I really enjoyed the human story in this movie, and they still gave me great fight sequences and great monster sequences. You have the iconic, Godzilla dance. Godzilla and Rodan did some sick teamwork moments. There was funny moments. I'll put it to you this way. I think there's probably, if I were to rewatch this movie again right now, like if me and you sat down and watched it together, I'm sure there's plenty to critique. There were some awkward cuts. You could tell the budget was low in some areas. Some of the set design and some of the miniature props were terrible. There were definitely moments that were worth criticizing, and it's particularly that Godzilla dance is one that I could see being very divisive. Probably you would have I think not knowing that it was part of like a viral dance from an anime at the time, not knowing that, you don't have that weird association. So for me, I have a more positive feeling towards it, but I can only imagine how people at the time felt about it. I would give anything to have been there, and see how people reacted at the time. But anyway, if I were to watch this again, I'm sure there's a lot of things in it that I could see and be like, that wasn't so great. That wasn't so great. That wasn't so great. But like I said, it's been a week since I watched this movie, and all of my memories and feelings towards it are super positive. I say that I don't give these movies a score out of 10, but I always end up talking about kind of how I felt out of 10. This is probably like a 9 out of 10 for me. This is a very strong Showa film, in my opinion, and I really liked it a lot. And this is definitely one that I would watch again, especially for Namikawa. I can see why Glenn loved her. But the monsters are great. The story's great. The acting is good, for the most part. There's a lot of human characters in this, and I like a lot of them. And you're starting to see a lot of recurring characters from previous Godzilla movies, and I love that. I love that recurring characters keep showing up. So I'm sorry that I don't mention that all the time, like who comes back for each movie. But I don't know their names, and I can't pronounce their names even if I did know. But so and I have a goldfish brain, so a lot of times, like Fuji. The astronaut that plays Fuji, the brother, he's been in like several Godzilla films by now, I'm pretty sure. I've seen him before. I know that. I've seen him a lot in Godzilla films, but I don't know his name, and I can't remember what his other roles were. So I'm sorry. But either way, this was great. I really enjoyed it. I think it's a great Godzilla movie, a great, strong Showa film. Probably my favorite since the OG, since the original Gojira. So yeah, really like this one a lot. Really good thoughts. I did like Ghidorah, the three-headed monster. I did like that movie. I think this is better. I think they give you the action faster. They give you more monsters, better action, more of it. Great fight sequence, human drama that you care about. Man, I just really like this movie. Really like this one a lot. And the next film, I believe... What's the next film? In Godzilla franchise. I believe it's the American version that I grew up with, Godzilla versus the Sea Monster. I could be wrong. I could be right. Let me see. So, Ibira, Horror of the Deep, also known as Godzilla versus the Sea Monster. So, Ebira or Ibira, I'm not sure how you pronounce it. I'm going to say Ebira. How do you pronounce Ebira? Let me see. So December 17th, 1966. So literally another year. So we are annualized as fuck right now. The director is Jun Fukuda? Fukuda? What? Oh, you know what? Let's not get into it. We'll save it for the next movie. The next movie is Ebira, Horror of the Deep. It's pronounced Ebira. Yeah, Ebira. So, I grew up with Godzilla versus the Sea Monster. Can't remember how I feel about this movie. I remember that this movie had a very different feeling, a very different vibe. And now that I know it has a different director, that's obviously going to be in my mind. But that's going to be the next one, and I'll see you here for that review. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Again, I'm sorry these videos are so long, but I just love talking about Godzilla. And I'll see you in the next one. Take care. Peace.